All right, welcome back to a how-to series on how to compose stuff, tricks, and tips, or what did I say? Tips and tricks on how to use MuseScore. So today we're gonna do multiple instruments. So I always like to start with a piano grand staff. So always start with a piano grand staff. You don't have to have a piano in the end of your song. You can always change it, but I always like to start as kind of like a mapping as a foundation. Once you get your piano in, it's much easier to add more instruments and take notes away from what you already have. So I always start with chords. This time I'm going to start with A minor. So I put my A minor chord in, got my A there. Let's do C. So I got my C major chord, C in the bass. We'll go to G, so G major chord, G in the bass, and then we'll do F. We'll go to Okay, so this is a classic 6, 6, 1, 5, 4. This is our chord progression. Of course, we're in the key of C major. We'll always be in the key of C major for now. You can actually do whatever you want in the key of C major and then easily transpose it. We will do that in the next lesson down the road. But for now, we have a 6, 1, 5, 4. I'm going to invert them. This is too high, bring it down. That's too high, bring it down. This is fine because that jump's not too bad. Let's bring this down. Let's analyze it. Nope. Bring that down. Okay. Okay. So remember from our inversions, now our chords look good. We can leave the bass as is. So let's add more instruments. To add more instruments, you're going to press I. Instruments starts with the letter I. So I press I. Now we have all our categories. I really, really like cellos and pianos together. So a cello has strings. It is bowed. You use a bow to play a cello. I bring up that category. Pick our violoncello, add it to score. Because violoncello is lower than a piano, it will go lower in our instrument list. That's okay. So just to start out, it is so easy just to copy and paste our bass clef of piano into our cello line. All right, so let's select it, click on this, hold down Shift, copy and paste. So Control C, click where I want it to go, Control V for paste, and there it is. Okay, so you can see it's the exact same notes. Let's hear it. Okay, so that's our cello. Let's add more. I'm going to press I for instruments. Let's do classical guitar. So under strings plucked. Guitars have strings on them, and we play them by plucking them. So let's bring it down. Classical guitar. We don't want tablature. We want just classical guitar. Add to score. So you want your lowest sounding instrument to be at the bottom. So classical guitar is a higher sounding instrument than cello. So while it's highlighted, I'm going to use these arrows and just put it in the middle. We don't want it higher than piano. Piano is a bit higher than guitar. So we'll have guitar in the middle. Once it is where I want it to be, I press OK. So now you see we have our guitar in the middle. We can easily just take our chords, select here, hold down Shift, select there, Control C for copy, and then paste it, Control V here. That is way too high for a piano. So once it is still selected, remember to change the octave of anything. You just press Control and down arrow. So Control, down arrow, and that'll bring it down here. You hear it? Okay, if I just, let me bring that back. If I just copied the piano and copied it, pasted it, Control V, it's too high. You can hear it. All right, that's a bit too high. So I'm going to bring it down an octave. I select it all. Again, hold down Shift, Control, down arrow. Brings me everything down an octave. And now it sounds where it should be. Okay, let's add some more. Let's try a violin. So I hit I. Violin has strings. They are bowed. You play a violin with a bow. Bring up my violin. Add to score. A violin, we're going to do a little bit higher than piano, so I want to put it above the piano. So if you see in my list here, I'm going to, while violin is highlighted, I'm going to move up the arrow. So now violin is going to appear on top of everyone because that's going to be our highest note. Okay, so for the violin, since it is a quite high-pitched instrument, like you can play quite high, I'm going to take every high note from our chord and put it in the violin. Okay, so click on the violin, press N. That gives me into note mode. I don't know why it brought my score over. Oh, I guess it does. Okay, we're gonna play, everything's gonna be whole notes. So before I put anything in, I'm gonna pick what note I want it to be. So I can either go up here and press whole note, or if I'm down here and I don't wanna go up, I can just press 7. And I'm gonna pick the highest note of our piano chord. So for this measure, it's gonna be an A. This one is gonna be a G. This one's gonna be a G. This one's gonna be an A. Okay, so I just looked at my piano chord. Whatever the highest note is, that is what I put in. So A, G, 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 A. Hear that? Okay, let's put in more. I for instruments. This time, okay, for our last instrument, I'm going to put in a flute. So flute is under woodwinds. So I click on that. Our second option is a flute. Add to score. Flute is a very high instrument usually, so it will normally go to the top, which we want. So here is a list of all the instruments we have. I press OK. So how about this one? I'm going to take the middle note from our chord. Okay, so click on the measure I want, press N, click on the duration I want. Everything is going to be a whole note. So I'm going to take the middle note of our chord, which is an E. The middle note of this chord is an E. The middle note of this chord is a D. And then the middle note of this chord is an F. But that's a little bit too low for a flute. We want it to stand out. So I'm going to actually change the octave of all these notes in the flute. So to do that, I'm going to click on the first one, first measure of the flute, hold down Shift, click on here so I have all 4 notes selected. And remember, to change an octave is Control up arrow or down arrow. We want to bring this up, so Control up arrow. And now you saw I just put everything up an octave. Let's hear that. Okay, so what do we have? We got a flute, violin. Should we take one more instrument and use the bottom note of our chord? Okay, so let's pick, okay, for vocals. Let's try vocals. So it's probably going to be alto, add to score. So this is someone singing. I'm going to bring it down because I want the alto just to be below our violin. A violin is a little bit higher than alto. I press OK. For alto, I'm going to pick the notes at the bottom of our chords. So click on the measure, press N, right, N, change it to a full note. I just pressed 7, by the way. And then I'm going to put a C, a C, a B, and a C. Well, that's easy, right? Because you can see the bottom note of our chord, C, C, B, C. Listen to that. I like that. Remember, you never do anything just once. We're going to do it twice. So we need to add 4 more measures. I'm going to press Alt, Shift, and B. B for boy. We're going to append 4 more measures. That just means how many measures you want to put at the end. Let's do 4. So we got 4 here. I like 4 measures per line. So I'm going to click on the last line of our the last measure of our first line, press enter. And now I got all my empty ones down here. I need to select all of this. So click on the first measure that you want selected, hold down shift, go down here. I got everything. I press R, R for repeat. And now my measures 5, 6, 7, and 8 have the exact same thing. So now everything should be twice. Okay, so that is how you add multiple instruments. Just remember, just to add another instrument starts with the letter I. So just press I, and all your options come up here. So this is what you get to pick from. These are all your categories. And then this is what is shown in your score. So that is how to multiple instruments.